put this shit on. See?
You're so pretty, Tom.
It'll make the review a lot better.
That's
make me
true.
Go faster. See, it's windswept.
Oh, okay, I got you. Yeah, there you go.
Race,
it works. It works.
I'm lying.
I was gonna see if you were gonna make some kind of like thing that would relate it to the movie that we were talking about today.
Yeah, Death Race 2000.
2000. Yes.
Yeah. The dystopian sci-fi action comedy. I guess.
From 1975. It's like a satire,
It's just
really.
ridiculous. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's kind of supposed to be ridiculous.
Yeah, it's supposed to be. Yeah. They're kind of poking fun at the American professional sports industry, probably NFL mostly, where America's addiction to like violence. Little did they know that it got even more violent as time went on. But they were complaining about something that had not reached full fruition.
That's true, yeah.
Now, fucking video games, if a video game's not violent, then it bitch won't sell, probably.
Yeah, but he's like, we don't want that. But at least it's like fake stuff.
Right.
Well, the thing about Death Race 2000, this came out in 1975. I didn't mention it. It was produced by Roger Corman.
Yeah.
So, the mark of quality.
Yeah.
And directed.
This is a good one for him.
It was, actually.
Yeah.
This is one that a lot of people remember.
Yeah.
And it was directed by Paul Bartel, who actually he did the original Little Shop of Horrors. I think he wrote Bucket of Blood, like a bunch of other Roger Corman movies. And I think he did Lust in the Dust with Divine and Tab Hunter.
Sylvester Stallone was in it.
Yes, in a very early role.
Yeah.
Was this his post-porn role?
Yeah, I
Because
think
wasn't he
so.
in a porn movie called Italian Stallion?
Yeah. Yeah, I think he was.
This might have been after that.
Yeah, it was after that, I think.
Yeah.
And then it also had the guy who played the bad guy from Karate Kid.
Yep.
The guy who ran the dojo, he's in it.
Yeah.
David Carradine's in it.
David Carradine is kind of the main character.
Yeah.
Frankenstein.
Yeah. And it's just a fucking wacky...
Mary Warrenoff is in it. She was in like a shit ton of movies.
I didn't recognize any of the women.
She was also in Chopping Mall. She's been in like a fuck ton of movies.
Okay.
She was in a fuck ton of movies.
It's kind of like a movie about America's a dystopian, kind of totalitarian country where it's ruled from afar by a bunch of corporations and a president who is kind of like a godlike being who's up on top of a damn mountain, and it's pretty good.
Like a pyramid or whatever the fuck that was supposed to be.
The people basically have to stay at home, I think. That is a lot of it, right? Where they don't have to do anything; they can just kind of live. I don't think.
Well, I don't know. They don't go too much into it because, I mean, like I said, this is like a really cheap, like Roger Corman movie, so it's not like they had a lot of money to do world building or anything.
Well, it was something having to do where they had traded something or other for prosperity.
I guess so. Well, I mean,
it's a bunch of jingoism and stuff.
Yeah, because it's like an authoritarian type of kind of shit going on.
Yeah, the flag is just red and silver now. It's the same.
Well, I thought it was like, isn't it like a fist with like a lightning bolt or some shit like that?
Yeah, that's where the stars would be in the blue background.
Yeah.
But the rest of it is just, it's red and silver instead of red, white, and blue. Each car in the race has its own theme, and you're supposed to race across country, and I guess you have to be the first one to cross the finish line, and also you're getting points for running people over. And
much like Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah. You got the most points for running over children and old people.
No, old people were the biggest score.
Oh, were they? Okay.
Yeah, old people were the biggest score.
And they had like a euthanasia day where they'd put all the people out in the road and you're supposed to run them over. And it was kind of funny, fucking... It's
a dark comedy for sure.
Yeah. They were kind of like playing on Soylent Green and some of the other post-apocalyptic movies that come before it. It kind of reminded me of, remember that one that had Lee Majors in it? I think it was called The Final Chase, or was it The Last Chase?
Oh, yeah. I think that was called The Last Chase.
The Last Chase.
I think that was on Mystery Science Theater, actually.
Yeah.
Like during their local, when they were still on a local channel.
Yeah, the U.S. is like a third world totalitarian country. There's no gasoline, or at least they're rationing it out. People couldn't have it. And Lee Majors takes his race car and tries to escape to the free zone, I think is what they called it. And they resurrect Burgess Meredith as like one of the last fighter pilots, and they sent him out to go intercept the car.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And
that was on
lasers and shit.
That was on a very, very early episode of Mystery Science Theater. The KTMA years.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked that movie when I was a kid.
That was actually a pretty good movie for them, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there were like so many dystopian movies in the 70s, I feel like. And yeah, this is definitely up there. This is almost kind of like I said, it's almost like a black comedy in the way that like The Running Man is.
Yeah.
This is kind of like the same sort of vibe. If anything, this is even more ridiculous.
Yeah.
You're putting on the hat and the wig.
Well, I'm dressed like Bon Scott now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have a drink on me. Yeah. Hell's bells. Stop distracting me.
All right. Well, okay.
No, I'm just doing my thing to distract me.
Stop distracting me. Stop distracting me by doing the topic that we're actually talking about.
No, I'm just doing what I'm doing. You go, what are you doing? Just let it roll.
Well, because you're distracting by doing your little shenanigans over there. Because I'm like, what the hell are you even doing now?
I'm going to put that shit back.
You're going to put it backwards? Yeah. Now, I don't even know who that is anymore.
I'm Carrot Top.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so as I said, this movie was actually Roger Corman wanted to make, kind of a dystopian sports type movie, because I guess like 1975 was also the year that Rollerball came out, which was kind of like a similar thing, but it was more like a bigger budget like studio thing. And you know how much Roger Corman loved to be like, hey, they're going to make a big budget that we're going to rip that off.
Rollerball, that's another one. Yeah, it's like
so it's kind of like his answer to that, even though it's not. I haven't seen Rollerball since I was a kid, so I barely remember
Similar to like this and The Running Man.
But it's a similar kind of thing where in a dystopian future of 2000, people are so jaded that the biggest sporting event is a transcontinental race where you just go around running people over and everybody cheers. So, life is cheap, yada, yada.
I said I was Bon Scott. I actually meant Brian Johnson, second singer. But go ahead, yeah.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't have known the difference, so you know what I mean.
If somebody out there goes, no, that's Brian Johnson.
Well, because you're always going to get somebody going, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in this movie, it's interesting because I saw this movie when I was a kid, probably. Like, I saw it on cable a couple of times, and I remembered all the racing shit, but I didn't remember that this actually, like, sort of has a plot. Kind of. I didn't remember all the other shit that went on in it.
They had a deeper message at the end.
It did, yeah.
So
remember back when there was a world crash of 1979, which is what happened in this movie. The world crashed in 1979. Everything went to shit. And like you said, it's almost kind of like, I don't know if they were saying that it was like a world government type of thing, because they were kind of talking about like the U.S.
It was kind of like, it's based on some shit, the writings of the United Nations at that time. What would happen if there was a worldwide economic collapse? Could the world's governments get together, and could the UN run it's globalism? That's basically what they're talking about. Could the United Nations run the economy from there, and could it govern, collapsed states from there, and those kind of writings were like, people were reading them and freaking them out, Alex Jones style. They're like, oh man, the fucking, the globalist takeover. And that's what they're talking about.
Well, yeah, it was very much in the zeitgeist. This is actually based on a short story called The Racer by Ib Melchior, who actually, he wrote a lot of like 50s sci-fi and 60s sci-fi, I feel like, because I know I've seen that name before, because how can you forget a name like Ib Melchior? Yeah. I'm just saying.
But the movie did address issues that, like I said, AJ would be talking about. Because if you have the movie shows it, if you have a one world government, it really couldn't be a democracy, because you can't get people in one country to fucking agree on anything through a democratic process. How are you going to get all these nations to agree on anything? So it would have to be kind of totalitarian. And it would have to be like based in non-consumption. They even the rebels who were trying to fight the damn one world government were fighting it through, what'd they call it? Inactive resistance? Passive resistance. Which that is resisting by not doing anything. That's not resistance. So the whole thing is kind of funny. It's poking fun at a dystopian future.
I will say though that I don't think that it was like a whole global government, because at some points they made jokes about how France was ruining everything, like the French were fucking.
Well, I think they were in the Union or coming out of the Union.
Yeah.
Remember, they said on several occasions that the United States was ruled from abroad.
Or at least that the president had homes
somewhere else
in lots of other countries.
Right.
Is, I guess, what like the implication there.
Yeah, I understood it as what they were talking about as a 70s era UN-based global government is what I thought they were talking about. It all seems to be there, what they're talking about.
Yeah, so basically you have, I guess what they're doing in true bread and circuses form is they're trying to get everybody to like stop complaining or whatever by doing this yearly race. It's only yearly, right? It's annual, and it's just called the Transcontinental Road Race. And like we said, there's, it's, I don't know, they don't really go much into the previous ones other than, saying some shit about some of the drivers and whatnot.
A lot of absurd shit too, because that Frankenstein won one of the only races, and he won it twice. And they worded it in a funny way. What'd they call it?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what the wording was.
The two-time winner of a fucking...
of the first annual or...
The first annual... something or other race. And they're like, wait a minute, hold on. That's one race and he won it twice. And there's a lot of comedy like that in there.
It was... Because I said that's almost like a Chuck Norris joke before there was a Chuck Norris joke. Like, that's how badass he is.
The shit's fucking absurd. And if you pay attention to the dialogue, it's even more absurd because there's a bunch of nonsensical shit.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like a satire. It's really interesting because I think, from what I could determine from everything that I read about this movie, was that when Roger Corman was first envisioning it and when he was like, trying to do the adaptation of the short story, he wanted to make it kind of more serious and gritty. But then when he had like the screenwriter he had like a bunch of comedy. So he made it like a satire. And Roger Corman was kind of like, I don't know if I like that. And he took a lot of the funny shit out. But a lot of the funny shit is still in there. So it's still very clearly like a black comedy. But it is a little tonally weird, but I kind of feel like overarchingly it's still like a ridiculous comedy because it's every bit of it is like ridiculous.
I think you called it though. The tone was very much like Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure that
just a lower budget.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that, Stephen King's Running Man, the story was kind of more serious than the movie turned out to be. But I'm assuming that when they made the movie, they were kind of thinking of the same tone as Death Race 2000, I kind of feel like. Because, a lot of people have seen Death Race 2000. It's a big cult classic. Yeah. So... Probably
Rollerball, too.
So I kind of feel like that's where they were getting the idea from.
Yeah.
So we're starting in the year 2000, obviously, and we have 4 sets of racers. So I guess every time you have a racer and then they have a navigator, and so like the navigator is always like switched out.
Yeah, well that's in real life too in rally.
Yeah.
They're rally cars basically.
So it's that kind of thing, and like every single one of them, like you said, has a theme. Yeah. You have Frankenstein, who's the main character, and he's played by David Carradine, and his shtick, which you kind of find out later on is bullshit.
It's a stick, yeah.
Is he has that black... He must have been like fucking baking when they were filming this.
It's like a Darth Vader outfit.
Kind of. And it's just, and it's just kind of like this really tight, like black, it's almost like an S&M looking thing.
Like bondage.
And his big thing is that he had to have, like, he was in all these horrible wrecks and had all these limbs replaced and all this other kind of shit.
Yeah, he was immortal. He couldn't die. He was just, every part on him was replaced.
Yeah, it's like I lost this eye in this race, and I lost this eye in this race. And it's like, even though he still has both
There's very little original him left, and I think they were getting that from Darth Vader.
Yeah. Even though, like I said, it wasn't true, because at some point later on, he kind of implied that he was just bullshit. Like a creation, that was like part of the shtick, like I said, so he hadn't actually lost all both his legs and his arms and everything like that.
He's racing in a Corvette that's been fucking mocked up to look like a dragon or a lizard or something.
Yeah, what is that? I guess it was supposed to be a dragon.
I think it's supposed to be a dragon. And then everybody else is in VW bugs. If it looks like when they were catching air, wheelbase and everything looked like a VW bug kit. And it looked like a damn belly pan on the bottom. So, that's the frame of a VW, just a fucking single pan. And they were kind of cool looking little rally cars, they kind of mocked up to look like little Triumphs and shit, little TR7s or something. But they were more simple than that. One of them was like a Nazi one.
That was, she cracked me up the most because her car was called the Buzz Bomb, right?
Buzz Bomb. Yeah.
And her name was, what was her fucking name? Matilda the Hun.
Matilda the Hun, yeah.
Matilda the Hun.
And she's kind of like...
And she had an helmet with a fucking swastika on it.
Yeah, and she had the fucking Herman the German.
Herman the German was her navigator. That's right.
He's kind of like a fucking beta. And then you had Calamity Jane with the cowboy motif, and she's kind of like this fucking...
That was Mary Warrenall's character.
Yeah, she's kind of like this sexually dominating kind of fucking sex fucking pot woman who's constantly trying to seduce men and fucking bring them under control and shit. Trying to cowgirl the shit out of them, I guess.
And then the dude from the fucking Karate Kid he didn't last too long. He was Nero the hero.
Yeah, they had a Roman motif.
And his navigator's name was Cleopatra, right? Yeah. They were the first ones to get rubbed out. I think they lasted about 5 minutes.
She was all boobalicious and shit, and fucking her top fucking the cleavage was this far and went all the way down to her belly button.
Yeah.
Fucking,
I love some of the shots when they were like talking to him and she was like right there. Yeah. Like, fucking, that was like funny as hell.
Yeah, and then another one of the cars was it was Sylvester Stallone and his fucking girlfriend, and they were dressed like fucking 1920s roaring 20s gangsters. What was he calling himself? Fucking.
He was Machine Gun Joe the Turbo.
Yeah, Machine Gun Joe the Turbo.
And he was kind of like the main antagonist because he was like the main rival. He was like this because Frankenstein was like the biggest driver and the most famous, and Machine Gun was like second place.
Yeah.
And I love that Sylvester Stallone in this movie, they just let him be, because he doesn't really get to be a bad guy all that much. And he was just a complete and utter fucking rage monster in this thing.
Yeah, girl said something sideways, he'd punch her. Pow!
Pow! Yeah, there's a lot of girl punching in this.
He kept punching his girlfriend in the face, and she's just a bimbo, you know. She doesn't know what
her helmet was all covered with white fur.
Yeah.
I fucking love that.
The crowd booed him and everything. He pulled out a Thompson submachine gun and starts fucking shooting at the fucking crowd up in the bleachers. Yeah, there's a lot of good moments.
Yeah, he was like super funny in this. And like I said, it's really good because they just let him kind of rampage all over this and just like, he just punching people and fucking...
Yeah, acting crazy, running people over
and acting fucking crazy and whatnot.
Yeah.
So he's kind of like, the main guy that wants to beat Frankenstein because he really hates Frankenstein's guts. And, every single scene he's just sitting there going, fine man, fuck that guy. Yeah. So it's all that kind of shit. Now, you have the race going on, and like we mentioned earlier... You not only have to get to, because they're going from like the East Coast to the West Coast, so you not only have to get to New Los Angeles first before everybody else, but you also have to rack up the most amount of points, by the way. And how you get along the way and how you get points is by running over pedestrians. So I think they bring up at some point that because this race is annual and it's a big deal and everybody knows when it is, most people stay off the roads, but... I guess there are some, for whatever reason, like some people kind of want to go, because like we said earlier, like the hospitals have Euthanasia Day where they wheel all the old folks like out into the street, like to let them get run over. Some people, maybe they forget about it. There was one guy that was dressed like a bullfighter that was like trying to bullfight the car.
Yeah.
There was that kind of shit.
It's just absurd, man.
Yeah, it's ridiculous
and you're like,
funny.
What's this dude get out of it? Nothing, evidently. He's just going to go bullfight the cars. There's a whole scene of him bullfighting this car.
Well, yeah, because there'd be at least one dude that would do that if this really happened. I was thinking that. I was like, it seems ridiculous, but if that really came to pass, like some kind of purge situation, there'd be at least one person doing that. Probably more than one, because how humans are.
Yeah, well, according to the revolutionaries, there wasn't much purpose for life in this world.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't do much anything. So the country was just run by a bunch of oligarchs, too. They mentioned that oligarchs were running a bunch of monopolies was part of it.
Yeah.
So there was, so the people really didn't do much. They kind of had a free and easy life, sitting around waiting to be told when to die, basically.
Yeah, so it's because when they wheel the old people out, like the old people are just like, okay, that's how it goes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The old people don't actually get run over though, because Frankenstein goes around and runs over a bunch of the nurses instead, which is hilarious because you just see the car go behind the shrubbery, and then all of a sudden these nurses start flying everywhere.
And some of these locations were like, where the hell is this? Some of it's map paintings. But there's some of this stuff is real. I look at real buildings. I couldn't place it.
The first part where, where they're starting the race and it's supposed to look futuristic, that's a very obvious map painting.
Yeah.
But I think most of the other shit looked like it was shot in a real location.
Yeah. It was a dystopia, but there wasn't any poverty. Like, they didn't show poverty. It's just that life had no purpose. According to what they were saying. Kind of like a Star Trek type situation, but... There's no reason to live there. They didn't do anything. That's what it seemed. I guess it's so you can say it kind of like Logan's Run.
Yeah, I guess so. They were kind of trying to go along that route. They were kind of like
useless people, useless eaters.
And and it's like, I guess when you think about the point system that they have, where like the elderly were like 100 points each.
They're trying to get rid of them.
Yeah, because it was like going down a scale of like most to least like useful, I guess.
Yeah.
So like old people were 100 points, children under 12 were 70 points.
And they called them toddlers. Toddlers under 12.
Toddlers under 12. Well, I was just like, I guess anything under 12 is considered a toddler, and it's like because
a toddler is not that under 12.
No, like I said, I know that, but I think that was like kind of the joke, because they're like, well, if you're under 12, you're a toddler. You can't have a job or anything like that, so you might as well be a toddler.
I think that's what they're talking about.
So I mean, so you're ending up with like scenes where, you know, some of the like the drivers, like they see the like this family having a picnic, or that doesn't turn out to be, it turns out to be like the resistance or whatever, but they think it's really them, and it's like, aim for the baby, you know what I mean? It's just kind of like, it's just so fucking, but it's so ridiculous, and there's a lot of, I was going to say there's a lot of gore in it, but it's just like ridiculous looking gore, and a lot of it doesn't look real. Yeah. And it doesn't look real. Like all the blood looks like fake paint. Like, so they like run over people and like smush their heads and stuff, but it's just like not, it doesn't look anything like realistic. So it's just like funny and over the top. But so you have all that going on, but then you also have Frankenstein and his navigator, who is a new navigator, because I guess, don't they mention at some point that like all his navigators have died, like during the race somehow? Yeah. I don't know if they're implying that he killed them or if they died during the course of the race or whatever. But so he has a new navigator, this hot chick named Annie. And as the story goes on, spoiler alert, you find out that she is actually part of the resistance. And part of their plan was they were going to take Frankenstein hostage, and then they were going to make the government stop the race, like abolish the race, because they thought that he would be like a good bargaining chip because he was like this big national hero or whatever.
Yeah. He also had, a funny thing to mention though, he also had a fan club of a bunch of hot goth girls basically dressed all in black.
Yeah, they have black shirts with like an F on them.
Yeah, that were willing to fucking jump out in front of the car and kill themselves so he'd get more points. That's looking cool. Fun fact, that girl that came to him and like and talked about that, like from the fan club, I think that was maybe the screenwriter's sister or the director's sister. All right. Because was it Paul Bartel's sister? It might have been. But yeah, it was one of those two guys' sister that like put in the movie. But yeah, she came there and she was like the big fan, and we're big fans of yours, and she's like, I wanted to meet you so it would have meaning. And he's like, so what would have meaning? I was like, she's gonna jump in front of his fucking car at some point. It made you think that she wanted to screw him, but no, she wanted to fucking give her life for him so he could get more points and win the race. That was another thing too, is that I guess if you were the navigator, even if you were the new navigator, you were just expected to like fuck the driver. Yeah, because they would every time, like at the end of every leg of the race, they would go to like a like a love motel, or it was just kind of like where they would stay for a day or two, and they'd all be naked on the thing, and they'd all be getting massages, and then you'd go to it's like a pit stop. Yeah, you'd go to the room with like your navigator, and that was just like expected. You know what I mean? Which I thought was kind of funny. Well, they were just trying to say that in the future it was real fucking kind of hedonistic. Yeah. Sex wasn't a big deal. And I kind of feel like it's funny too, because you could clearly tell like the place where they were all getting massages, that looked like a mall atrium. From like the 70s. They just walled the damn storefronts off, but that's a fucking mall. And I think that like the big super futuristic like bedrooms and stuff with all the red velvet. They were either empty stores or it was like a high school gym or something like that. that one of them where he was taking his clothes off and shit, and they were doing the dance. That was a store. Yeah. Yeah. So it was like, it was like a mall that they were just like, hey, can we clear all the shit out of the store and like film our movie in there? Well, like I said, Roger Corman, he's like very, very budget minded. But yeah, so all along, like while they're doing the race, you have the drivers kind of trying to kill each other. They don't really have a route that they take, which is why they have navigators. They split up, They can split up, and you can take whatever route you want. Yeah. So some of them are like, hey, I heard there was like an old folks home, or like a place where they're like a Boy Scout camp or something where a bunch of people would be running around that they could run over and get points and stuff. So it's like, so they'd all take different routes. But then in the same token, like the drivers are kind of trying to kill each other. And then also the resistance has like kind of all these plans. And then as it goes
on, like, Frankenstein sort of twigs onto the fact that Annie is working for the resistance, and so is kind of like working at cross purposes to him.
Yeah, he's kind of sick of this, and he doesn't really believe in it. You find out later.
Yeah.
He kind of joins the resistance in a way.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you want to spoil the end or whatever. But...
Well, I kind of feel like everyone's seen Death Race 2000. And the thing about it, too, is that it was remade in 2008 with Jason Statham. Although I don't know if they were... when they said that it was like supposed to be like a remake, but I think it was supposed to be a prequel because, you know, at the end of this movie, the race gets abolished, right? But in the movie, they're still doing it, and Frankenstein is still a character, and blah blah blah. But it's kind of like, I kind of feel like I haven't seen the remake, but from what I could determine from the Wikipedia plot synopsis, I think they took out that whole thing about running over pedestrians and getting points for it.
Yeah.
And also, it's not funny. Like, it was like a serious, like, dystopian. And I think they really missed a trick there. I think they could have made it, like, really funny. Well, like I said, you can do it kind of funny, like The Purge. That's kind of like, you know, black humor type shit.
Yeah, running over the civilians was...
That was the best part.
That was, like, one of the best parts of the movie. Well, they were just trying to show you that the human life had no meaning, really.
Right.
At this point in time.
And like I said, the tone of it is just so over-the-top ridiculous. Yeah. And I mean, they have everybody in their, like, horrifying 70s fashions. They have, like, the dude that's doing all the commentary. It's just, like, so over-the-top with, like, the fucking neckerchief and all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Like, talking about all the shit that happens. They have, and that other woman they have, and her last name is Pander, right? Grace Pander. And she's kind of one of those, like, oh, I love everybody's my friend, my dear friend. And we're going to interview this person and that person. And we're going to do this. And they're giving prizes to, like, the widow of the first dude that got run over in the race and shit like that.
It seems ridiculous to us, but in a way, stuff like this happened in Rome with the gladiatorial fights all the time. It was just, they accepted it. Like, for instance, if a section of the audience got unruly, sometimes if an emperor or somebody who real high ranking, who if he was proceeding over the games, would go like, so that section right there, fuck them, throw them in there, and they would throw a whole section of people into the arena to be killed for getting out of line.
That's what happens when you don't behave.
It'd be the same thing, you know what I mean? It'd be the same kind of mentality. If you're going to go out and watch Death Race and be a part of Death Race, you getting run over, hey, that's part of the game.
Yeah.
So, you know, you were the one out there watching it. I mean, you know, Machine Gun, whatever his name was.
Gun Joe, yeah.
Machine Gun Joe was shooting into the audience of people who booed him.
It's right there in his name.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
Right.
And also he backed over his own pit crew to get points.
Yeah.
Well, and another thing that Frankenstein did too, and I thought this was another funny bit, was that he dropped his glove and then he circled back around so he could specifically like run over one of the race officials.
Yeah,
and then
was a bishop.
And then then like all the other race people were like, wait, does that count? And then like somebody came and said, yeah, it does count. Woo!
Said, yeah, you got points for it.
And I said, okay, well then from that point forward, you'd think that the drivers would just go around like running over all the race officials and running over parts of the crowd and stuff like that, because you get all kind of points, right?
We got the points not because he was a race official, it was because he was a bishop.
Yeah.
Remember, he was like he was a religious.
Yeah, he was like
person.
overseeing
Overseeing it.
But that's like,
what they gave him the points for, from what I remember, because they didn't do it again.
Yeah, like I said, and I was watching another review of it earlier, and the guy was like, you'd think because at one point Machine Gun Joe, like I said, backs over two of his own pit crew to get the points. And I was like, you'd think that more people would do that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, because it seems like easy points. They're just standing right there. You don't get many points for men, though. They said the men, you didn't get much points. Women, I think you only got 10 points per. Mostly the thing was old people and children was what gave you the most points. You know what I mean? Maybe because, like I said, because they were implying that, they were more useless to the society. Yeah. And also maybe because they didn't come out to the race, so they wouldn't have a reason to be out in the road so much, so it was like rarer maybe.
I think it was just because they were more vulnerable.
Yeah.
So there was you got more points because it was more humorous.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they
it just reminded me. It's funny because
kind of mean-spirited.
Yeah, I even think before I even saw this movie, we used to make jokes a lot, like when we were kids. My dad would be driving and like somebody'd be crossing the street and they'd be really slow and it'd be like 20 points, 20 points. You know what I mean? So I kind of feel like a lot of people have done that. Yeah. So like I said, that's why so many people like Grand Theft Auto, because it's kind of the same sort of thing. You can do it without feeling bad. But yeah, so I definitely had a framework for that kind of joke. But as I said, it's just so over the top and ridiculous that it's like you can't really take it seriously. Yeah, it has like some shit to say. It's like much deeper than I remembered it being. Yeah. And I had forgotten the whole, the resistance angle and like his navigator being part of the resistance and, her being the granddaughter of Thomasina Payne, which I thought was really funny, who was kind of like this crotchety old lady who was like the head of the resistance.
They don't get it. Thomas Paine was a revolutionary. An American revolutionary.
So it was all that. And there's like some funny jokes in there about the French, because sometimes like when shit would happen, like when Matilda the Hun like goes over a cliff in a very Wile E. Coyote moment, she's just kind of like goes off the road and goes off a cliff. And they try to make it seem like even though she died, they made it seem like she scored a whole bunch of points. So they were kind of making a commentary too about how like the media like distorted everything. You know what I mean? Because some shit would have like a car would blow up and then they'd like change the story. And then they'd say like at one point the resistance had a little plane and they were trying to kill Frankenstein. And they were saying, like, when something happened to the car, they said it was the French Air Force. You know what I mean? So they're making all these jokes about like, the French, like, fucked up everything, which I thought was really funny. That was, like, kind of a running joke throughout. But, yeah, so if you like these kind of ridiculous 70s dystopian type of movies, like I said, this one is much funnier and, like, much more self-aware than somebody. It's not serious at all, even though I kind of feel like Roger Corman wanted it to be serious. And he took a lot of jokes out, at least according to the screenwriter. But most of it is just still fucking funny. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, interestingly, we watched this on Tubi. It's free on there. But weirdly, and I've never seen this happen before, there's a lot of nudity in this, and it was all, like, pixelated out. Yeah. And I don't think, and I've watched tons of movies on Tubi, and they, as far as I know, they never cut any nudity out.
It was just the edit that they had that they copied on.
So I kind of feel like maybe I was like, did you get a Japanese Laserdisc print or something like that?
Maybe there's a PG-13.
Although all the swearing was in there, and there's a lot of swearing and a lot of blood. Like
might have been by accident.
That's what I'm saying, because I was like, yeah, I've watched lots of movies on Tubi, and they never take anything out. They don't cut it. They put commercials in there sometimes, but they don't cut it.
There must be a non-nude version, and they accidentally put that up.
Maybe so. But like I said, it's not the PG-13 version, because all the swearing and the gore is still in there. Yeah. It was only just the boobies and bush that they pixelated out, which I thought was very odd. But yeah, so I don't know. What's the deal, Tubi? Just somebody let me know. But yeah, so if you watched on Tubi, keep that in mind. You won't be able to see any boobies.
Yeah, you can get it for like $3 on
Amazon Prime. Yeah, you can just rent it on there. And I'm sure you can find it someplace else too. I'm just saying.
Kind of like Arnold Schwarzenegger's Running Man. Kind of. Yeah. It's older, less of a budget. You know.
Yeah, super cheap, but like also kind of funny and like
funnier,
ridiculous.
But that same premise, basically.
Yeah, but same premise. So yeah, that'll do it for this movie retrospective. We will see you guys on the next one. Bye.